major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
Algeria's mandate as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council has started for a 2-year period. And several Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed and wounded in the continued Israeli pounding of the Gaza Strip. And Somalia's cabinet is holding today an emergency meeting to discuss a pact signed by Ethiopia with the separatist region of Somaliland, which Somalia describes as null and unconstitutional. And those were the major developments. Now, the full news edition. Good afternoon. Algeria's mandate as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council has started for a 2-year period. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has repeatedly said that Algeria's mandate will be devoted to the implementation of his firm commitments to give voice to Africa at the UN Security Council. Jamal Salmani has the details.
Last June, 184 out of 193 countries, constituting 95% of the votes, spoke in favor of Algeria so that it enjoys the status of non-permanent member of the United Nations General Assembly in New York for the 2024-2025 period. Algeria begins its mandate alongside Sierra Leone, South Korea, Guyana and Slovenia until December 31st, 2025. This is the 4th time in history that Algeria occupies a non-permanent seat at the Security Council. Algeria's priorities within the UN Security Council are the strengthening of peaceful settlements, the consolidation of partnerships, support for the role of regional organizations, the promotion of the status of youth and women in peace processes, and the strengthening of the international fight against terrorism. Regarding African countries, Algeria will work on promoting an increase in the number of non-permanent seats for African countries from 3 to 5, in line with the recommendations with the Uzuluini Consensus and the Sirte Declaration. Algeria will also contribute within the Security Council to the unification of Africa's voice for a better advocacy of the continent's priority issues and its legitimate aspirations.
To the Palestinian thorny issue now, several Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed and wounded in the continued Israeli pounding of the Gaza Strip. Miriam Barshi tells us more.
The news agency Wafa stressed that the Israeli bombardments targeted in the central of Gaza, as well as the southern town of Khan Yunis, killing 15 Palestinians and causing considerable damage. In this respect, the Palestinian Education Ministry said that over 4,000 students were killed and more than 380 schools were destroyed since the Israeli authorities launched their operation on Gaza over 2 months ago. The Israeli operations on Gaza have so far caused over 22,000 deaths and thousands of wounded. According to the UN, 1.8 million people have been displaced by the fighting, representing 80% of the population of Gaza. This came as the Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned recent statement by the Israeli authorities aimed at deepening the war of genocide carried out in Gaza. It affirmed that those statements calling for the displacement of Gaza's populations and the Jewish settlers returned to the territory were part of the Israeli plans that advocate more violence and extremism without triggering any reaction from the international community. Meanwhile, Cuba's President Miguel Diaz-Canel reiterated while commenting on the situation in Gaza that it was necessary that the international community took steps to stop the genocide carried out in the Gaza Strip. He made the statement while commenting on the situation in Gaza in a video he posted on the X platform.
And 4 young Palestinians were shot dead by the Israeli occupation forces in the town of Azun in the northern West Bank, province of Qalqilia. According to Palestinian security sources, the 4 civilians were killed during confrontations that erupted as the Israeli occupation forces stormed the town, sparking intense confrontations. Israeli occupation soldiers fired live ammunition, stun grenades, and tear gas at the local residents during the raid, resulting in a tragic human toll. In response to the tragic incident, the town's community has declared an inclusive strike today that includes all aspects of public life in mourning of the 4 Palestinian victims. And the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, has reported that 142 of its staff had been killed in Israeli attacks in Gaza since October 7. UNRWA has said humanitarian workers are not a target and must be protected at all times. Last Friday, UNRWA's Director of Affairs in Gaza, Tom White, said that the occupation forces had killed humanitarian workers in Gaza in an attack on a UN humanitarian convoy returning from northern Gaza. In addition, 203 incidents affecting UNRWA buildings were reported since October 7, including 60 direct attacks on UNRWA facilities. And the Israeli occupation has carried out missile strikes that targeted several regions of the suburbs of Damascus, causing material damage. The Syrian news agency Sana said that the attack was carried out from the Syrian Golan Heights, from where the Israeli occupation forces launched missiles towards Damascus. On December 30, Syria announced that the Israeli occupation launched airstrikes that targeted several sites in the city of Aleppo in the northern part of the country. Back to Africa now. Somalia's cabinet is holding today an emergency meeting to discuss a pact signed by Ethiopia with the separatist region of Somaliland, allowing Ethiopia to use the Red Sea port of Berbera. Jamal Salmani tells us more.
Somalia's cabinet will decide on a response at the emergency meeting. Earlier, Somalia recalled her ambassador in Ethiopia following the accord between Ethiopia and Somaliland, allowing the latter to have access to the sea via a port located in Somaliland. Mogadishu described the accord as surprising, stressing that the accord is a flagrant violation of Somalia's sovereignty. The accord was signed while Somalia and Somaliland accepted last week to resume negotiations to resolve suspended issues following years of political tensions and blockade. Somaliland is part of Somalia in line with the Somali constitution, which makes the accord with Ethiopia a violation of Somalia's sovereignty and unity, as Somalia put it. The Somali Prime Minister, Hamza Abdi Barre, said that Somalia is determined to defend its country and every inch of its soil, sea and airspace. Somalia has also called on the United Nations, African Union, Arab League and East Africa Regional Community to defend the right of Somalia to preserve its sovereignty and force Ethiopia to respect international laws.
Sudan now, and the head of the coordination of the Civil Democratic Forces, Abdullah Hamdouk, and the head of the Rapid Support Rebel Forces, Mohammed Hamdan Daglo Hamiti, have examined in Addis Ababa ways of putting an end to the conflict now raging in Sudan. The two men also examined how to allow the population to have access to humanitarian aid. Addressing the press, the spokesperson of the Civil Forces Coordination said the meeting focused on the peace prospects and mainly on the humanitarian issue, notably the protection of the population, which is confronted to an acute crisis since last year. It is worth recalling that the Civil Democratic Forces Coordination, made up of political parties and civil organizations, was set up before the conflict broke out between the government and the Rapid Support Rebel Forces. The Addis Ababa encounter comes ahead of a meeting planned in Djibouti this week between the head of the Rapid Support Forces, Hamiti, and the head of the Sudanese Sovereignty Council, Abdel Fattah Burhan. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has declared that more than 114 million people in the world were forced to flee their homes in 2023. In a report, the UNHCR stressed that the high number of people forcibly displaced was mainly due to wars, persecution, violence, and violation of human rights. The UN noted that 2024 must be a year of solutions to the refugee and displaced crises. In a previous report, UNHCR affirmed that the conflicts, notably in Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Burma, as well as the humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan, were the main factors for the forced displacement during the first semester of 2023. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and in Russia, at least one person has been killed and 5 others have been wounded following Ukrainian bombardments that targeted the region of Belgorod. And Moscow has launched missile attacks on Ukraine after Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed revenge for strikes on Russia. A raid warning sounded for 4 hours across Ukraine earlier today, with officials reporting large-scale missile strikes on Kiev and Kharkiv, in which 4 people died. The latest strikes come days after Ukraine attacked the Russian border city of Belgorod on Saturday, killing at least 25 civilians and injuring more than 100 others. And 48 people were killed so far in the series of earthquakes that hit the central part of Japan. Local sources reported that the Japanese government ordered the evacuation of more than 51,000 people in 5 prefectures. Several houses have collapsed and the train service were temporarily interrupted in certain regions in Japan. The power of 32,500 homes was cut off in the prefecture of Ishikawa, located on the island of Honshu. The tremors were felt in the region of Ishikawa and surrounding provinces, notably the Fukui and Niigata provinces, as well as in the capital city of Tokyo and its surroundings. 14 hours 41 minutes Algiers time. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and now the headlines. Algeria's mandate as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council has started for a 2-year period. And several Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed and wounded in the continued Israeli pounding of the Gaza Strip. Somalia's cabinet is holding today an emergency meeting to discuss a pact signed by Ethiopia with the separatist region of Somaliland, which Somalia describes as null and unconstitutional. That's it, dear listeners, for our news bulletin. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and I invite you now to listen to a program compiled and presented by Jamal Salmani, to be followed by the economic program presented by Said Bouazi.
The year 2023 was marked by Algeria's election as non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. The Algerian presidency has described the election as a diplomatic success, showing that the new Algeria is back on the international stage, adding that it reflected the international community's respect and esteem for the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune. In recognition of its pivotal role in the region, Algeria has been elected with an overwhelming majority of the 193 UN General Assembly member states in the first round of a secret ballot as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for a 2-year term starting on the 1st of January 2024. Following the election of Algeria, her permanent representative to the United Nations, Ammar Benjama, had this to say.
I would like to extend my sincerest thanks to the friendly countries that voted today in favor of the Algerian candidature as a non-permanent member of the Security Council for the term 2024-2025. Algeria's membership constitutes indeed a high priority for Algeria's diplomacy and for President Abdelmadjid Tebboune. This brilliant election is another testimony and a mark of recognition of Algeria's positive contribution and tireless effort to maintain peace and security at regional and international level. It is also a heavy but still honorable and very rewarding responsibility. Algeria will embrace this responsibility with a deep sense of humility, dedication, and commitment, and will contribute as a responsible and credible partner to enable global action in the face of global challenges by presenting ideas and initiatives that would enhance the role of multilateralism and maintaining international peace and security, thus meeting the need and the expectation and the aspiration of all mankind.
The adhesion of Algeria to the Security Council shows the international community's recognition of her contribution to the promotion of international peace and security and her commitment to defend fair causes with rigor and dedications. On the occasion, ceremony was organized here in Algiers in the presence of top government officials, diplomats and ambassadors. Two of the ambassadors who attended the ceremony had this to say.
I want to congratulate Algeria on its election. We are confident that Algeria will be a very good representative of Africa and a good representative for the Arab world. They have the principles, respect the principles of the UN Charter, for countries that supports sovereignty, sovereign integrity of states, as well as the self-determination of states.
Algeria has a big potential to contribute greatly for the work of the Security Council in the United Nations. We are the member of the non-permanent seat in the Security Council starting this year. So Japan and Algeria will be together in the Security Council next year. And that will give us a great opportunity to work together. And we know that Algeria is very firm in respecting and also safeguarding the principles of UN Charter, and which is very important in the current situation. And we are calling for the promotion of rule of law in the international society. And so we count very much on Algeria, and we are very much looking forward to working together with Algeria within and even outside the Security Council.
The election of Algeria is the result of the President of the Republic's vision, an approach to the preservation of peace and security worldwide based on peaceful coexistence, peaceful settlement of disputes, and non-interference in the internal affairs of countries. This year, 2023, was marked by the speech of President Tebboune at the 78th session of UN General Assembly in New York, in which he stressed the need to build a more just and equitable multipolar world. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune said that for the past 50 years, the Algerian government has been pointing out how the global order's dysfunction prevents equality among member states, and that conflicts and crises have reached unprecedented levels and displaced millions amid an increasing number of emergencies worldwide. He stressed the necessity to uphold the rules of the Charter and establish a sound framework to strengthen international cooperation, adding that the global goals must be achieved in a multipolar world.
لقد حان الوقت للتفكير معا في سبل إعلاء قيم ومبادئ ميثاق الأمم المتحدة وتعزيز التزاماتنا الجماعية وإرساء الأسس المتينة التي تفضي إلى المزيد من التعاون العالمي الفعال بشأن القضايا الرئيسية حتى نتمكن من إشعاع السلم والأمن الدوليين وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة في ظل عالم متعدد الأقطاب.
President Tebboune says, quote, "The time has come for all of us to reflect together to uphold the principles and goals of the UN Charter and to strengthen our common engagement and to establish a sound framework for further effective international cooperation on major issues with the aim of consolidating international peace and security, as well as achieving sustainable development goals in a multipolar world." End of quote. As Algeria prepares to become a non-permanent council member, it stands ready to strengthen cooperation with all council members and use her experience in mediation to seek peaceful solutions to conflicts. The president said it would bring the aspirations of the African continent and Arab world to the council as it focuses on lasting solutions to conflicts by dealing with their root causes.
ومن هذا المنظور فإن الجزائر التي تتأهب لتبوء مقعدها غير الدائم بمجلس الأمن تعي ثقة المسؤولية الملقاة على عاتقها بالنظر للتحديات الجمة
التي تواجهها المجموعة الدولية. وأغتنم هذه السانحة لأجدد الشكر لكل الدول 184 التي صوتت لصالح بلادي، وهي ثقة ستحرص الجزائر على صونها أثناء عهدتها بالمجلس، وستسعى على تجسيدها بالتعاون الوطيد مع كافة الدول الأعضاء في مجلس الأمن وفي هيئة الأمم المتحدة.
The President says, quote, Algeria, which prepares herself to be a non-permanent member of the Security Council, is aware about her responsibility, particularly in the face of the challenges the international community is facing. Bearing all that in mind, I want to take this opportunity to once again express my gratitude to the 184 member states who voted in favor of Algeria, and this is an expression of trust that Algeria will seek to preserve throughout her term in the Security Council. Algeria is ready to strengthen cooperation with all member states in the Security Council. End of quote. The progress on the Council's reform is also essential. Algeria will continue its efforts to change the historic injustices against the African continent and support oppressed peoples fighting in their freedom. Pointing to the Algerian government's long-standing support for the Palestinian people's right to establish an independent state, he called on the Council to adopt a resolution to guarantee the two-state solution and end the unilateral practices of the occupying authority, including the settlements on the Palestinian territory. In his speech, he called for an extraordinary assembly session to grant the State of Palestine the status of a full United Nations member state. He stressed Algeria's readiness to share her experience in combating terrorism, which must be a priority for the entire African region.
Hi and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. First in the news, the telecommunications company Algerie Telecom and mobile operator Djezzy have signed a partnership agreement aimed at further strengthening their fruitful collaboration with a view to offering high-quality services to the citizens. This new strategic partnership between the two state-owned companies covers several areas, including notably the promotion of products and services, as well as the development of digital content, says a joint press release from the two companies underlining their shared desire to contribute to the development of telecommunications in Algeria. The first partnership agreement was signed between Algerie Telecom and Djezzy in December 2022, according to the same source. The Popular Credit of Algeria, CPA, will be launching new products for investors in the framework of Islamic finance from the first quarter of 2024, according to Sofiane Mazari, head of the Islamic Finance Department at the state-owned bank. In a statement to APS, Sofiane Mazari said that the Islamic Finance Department within the public bank was aiming to make 2024 a year of supporting investment projects and consolidating the contribution of Islamic finance to the financing of the national economy through the consolidation and expansion of the rest of the financial products and services in line with the provisions of the Sharia. A total of 71 startups operating in the field of fisheries and aquaculture are receiving support from various structures in the sector, said an official at the Ministry of Fisheries and Fish Productions. Entrepreneurship and startups are of great interest in the Fisheries and Aquaculture Development Program as projects led by young people with innovative ideas, including university students and graduates, help to increase productivity, explained Jamal Boulaksaim, advisor to the Minister of the Sector, on Channel 1 of the National Radio. In more Algerian economic news, Prime Minister Nadir Al-Arbawi chaired Wednesday a government meeting devoted to examining the measures taken by the sectors concerned to ensure the availability of basic products on the markets and price stability in order to protect the citizens' purchasing power in accordance with the participatory economic approach formulated with the various representatives of the professional organizations concerned, said the press release issued by the Prime Minister's services. The government also examined the proposals for improving and rationalizing university facilities with a view to improving students' living conditions, promoting the various services and rationalizing the state's efforts on behalf of this important category of society in implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic. The Director General of Customs, Major General Abdelhafid Bakhouch, has said in Algiers that all customs services are available and mobilized to provide support to economic operators, particularly exporters of Algerian dates. Speaking at an information day organized by the Directorate General of Customs for date exporters with the participation of customs executives and representatives of bodies and organizations involved in promoting foreign trade, General Major Bakhouch said that his services were working to continue supporting economic enterprises by granting them customs facilities, particularly in terms of date exports and access to international markets as an additional source of foreign currency and export diversification. The Minister of Energy and Mines, Mohamed Arkab, has received the heads of Chinese groups involved in examining the Garj Bilat mine development project, with whom he reviewed current and future cooperation and investment opportunities, according to a ministry press release. The meeting, which took place in the presence of the CEO of the Sonarem Group and the CEO of the National Iron and Steel Company Ferral, a Sonarem subsidiary, as well as executives from the ministry, was marked by an examination of the state of cooperation between the Chinese CMH Consortium and the Sonarem Group concerning the exploitation of the Garj Bilat mine. And to wrap it up, the turnover of the public pharmaceutical group Saidal should reach around 19.5 billion dinars in 2023 compared with 14.6 billion dinars in 2022, an increase of 35%, said Wassim Khouidri, CEO of Saidal. He was speaking at a working meeting chaired by the Minister of Industry and Pharmaceutical Production, Ali Aoun, devoted to the presentation of the group's results for 2022 and 2023, as well as its development outlook for 2024. And with this, we come to the end of our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news. Goodbye.
إذاعة الجزائر الدولية تنقل إليكم صوت الجزائر، تضعكم في الصورة وترسم لكم الطريق عبر محللين مختصين ومراسليها في العالم.